Sup nerds? We only have one more category left in the Fable 1 collections, and it is of course the legendary weapons. I decided not to talk about the normal weapons, because we can get them practically anywhere and it would just make the video much longer than it already is. So let's keep to the unique ones, yeah? Like I said, the list is still pretty long. We'll try to put it in order of which you can acquire them. Of course, putting the DLC stuff to the very end, even though they can be just bought from the stores whenever. Anyway, let's get to it. First of course is the stick, and yeah, I count this as a legendary, it is a unique weapon, there's no other weapons like it, and you get this by just playing the tutorial. It has a damage of mere 20 and it is one-handed. Then the actual very first legendary weapon you can get is probably the Wellow's Pickhammer, which can be obtained from the Greatwood Gorge Demon Door. All you have to do is eat 11 crunchy chicks in front of him and voila. The Pickhammer has 120 damage and 2 piercing augmentations. Next is the Cutlass Bluetane, which can be acquired from the Greatwood Cave's Demon Door. By getting your multiplier high enough, you can either fight the masses of hobs inside the cave to have your multiplier above 30 and then running out on time, or just hold your bow for 2 minutes before shooting the golem outside. The Cutlass Bluetane has 165 damage and a lightning augmentation. This is a one-handed weapon, and it used to be my favorite weapon when I first played through Fable 1 way back in 2004. The Arken's crossbow is technically next, but you do need to get 15 silver keys, so perhaps not the very next weapon you will get. But still, you will find this silver chest quite early on at the Darkwood Lake. He has a damage of 220 and 3 different augmentations already on it, being flame, piercing, and silver. Next is a Skorm's bow, which is my favorite ranged weapon to this day. It can be acquired from the Chapel of Skorm by making enough sacrifices. An easy way to do this is to get 2 mercenaries to follow you and get to the chapel near midnight. Once it is around midnight, sacrifice both mercenaries and that should be enough. It has a damage of 264 and has both the lightning and a sharpening augmentations. Then the next one is most likely going to be the Dollmaster's Mace, which can be acquired from the Abandoned Road Demon Door. You do however need a full set of Bright Plate Mail, which you might only get access to purchase from vendors a bit later into the game, the Dark Will User's Outfit, which you also get from a Demon Door but in Darkwood Marshes, and the Bandit's Outfit, which you get from doing the Seeking the Bandit series main quest. Showing all 3 outfits to the Demon Door in order will make it open up to you. That said, the Mace only has 135 damage and a mana augmentation, and it is a one-handed weapon. Then on your way to the Knothole Glade, you will come across the Temple of Avo. Donating enough money to it can get you the Sentinus. He has a whopping 255 damage with both silver and piercing augmentations. This is a two-handed weapon, and because of the silver augmentation, this can definitely be used against the White Balverines in both the main quest and the arena. Now right behind / above the Temple of Avo is the Sword in Stone. If you have all of your physical stats maxed out at this point, you can just pull out the sword with no hassle. But the normal way is to fail on your first attempt to pull the sword, then upgrade your physique 5 times, upgrade your health 2 times, and upgrade your toughness 3 times. Again, after the first attempt of pulling the sword. So something people do is to not upgrade any of the physical stats until after you get here. Then you can easily pull it off by upgrading the necessary stats. It does have 198 damage with both the sharpening and piercing augmentations. This has great stats for a one-handed weapon. Once you beat the arena, you will of course gain access to Bowerstone North, and going to the shop before doing any of the quests there, you can find the Solus Greatsword being sold for around 70,000 gold depending on your alignment. Despite its quote-quote high price, this is the weapon with the highest damage in the game with a whopping 313 damage along with a flame, health, and sharpening augmentations. This is of course a two-handed weapon. If you did progress on some of the quests though, and the shop no longer sells this, marrying Lady Grey and flirting and gifting stuff to her a lot can eventually lead her to gifting you the Solus Greatsword. Speaking of Lady Grey, you can get the Ronok the Axe from the Demon Door at the Grey House. That said, the Demon Door will only open up to you if you marry none other than Lady Grey, and if you decide to not marry her or to turn her in for her sins, you won't be getting this weapon. That said, its damage is only 165 with a sharpening and silver augmentation. This is also a one-handed weapon. Speaking of marrying Lady Grey, by marrying her you do get access to the Bowerstone Manor, consequently Lady Grey's bedroom, which is where a 15 silver key chest is located. Opening this will get you the Katana Hiryu. Supposedly on Lost Chapters you could still get access to the manor by turning Lady Grey in and becoming the mayor yourself, but honestly, counting the previous weapon and perhaps even the one before that, why wouldn't you marry Lady Grey? This is also one of the better one-handed weapons with a 214 damage with a flame and sharpening augmentations. Then there's a somewhat secret weapon called the Frying Pan, and to get it you do need to get all 6 treasured clues and then dig manually at the orchard farm behind the haystack near the barn. Some of the 6 clues can be missed though, as some of the side quests in which you get them do disappear if you progress a lot in just the main quests, so be sure to do all of the side quests before doing the main ones. The 6, in order of their number of the clue, can be acquired from the Bounty Hunt side quest, the Lost Trader side quest, the 5 Assassins attack that come after you, earning a score over 220 in the archery competition at Naho Glade, or by offing the competition runner, the Orchard Farm chest, which you can get super early on, and the Windmill Hill chest. The Frying Pan has a damage of 100 with 5 empty slots in Fable 1 and Lost Chapters, but only 4 in Anniversary. It is important to note that you can dig this up without having all the 6 clues, but doing so will make it so that this weapon is a single-handed weapon with no slots to augment. Finding all 6 clues prior to digging it up does make it a two-handed weapon and gives you all of the augmentation slots. Then, though this 25 silver key chest has been available to you in Heroes Guild since the tutorial, because you do need 25 silver keys, I did put it after all of the Bowerstone North stuff, and opening it gets you the Murren Greathammer, which, if you missed the Solus Sword, this is, before the Lost Chapter stuff, the second best weapon in the game, with a sizable damage of 270 with a piercing and experience augmentations. Then, near the end of the base game, at the top of the Hook Coast Lighthouse, there is a 15 silver chest key. Opening this chest gets you the Murren Greataxe, which I'm pretty sure is the axe that Scarlet Robe uses, as shown in the statue of her in Naho Glade and in the arena. It has a 240 damage and a piercing augmentation. This is of course a two-handed weapon. Then of course, beating Jack of Blades in the base game at the Chamber of Fate and committing a bit of fratricide gets you the famed and feared Sword of Aeons. In the original Fable 1, the damage of this was a whopping 550, which is bonkers to think about now. But in the Lost Chapters and the Anniversary, this is a 230 damage with health, mana, and experience augmentations. It is a one-handed sword. Getting this, however, locks you out of getting the Avos tier later on in any legit way. Congratulations, you beat the base game. Now onto the weapons that we can get in the Lost Chapters. And the first sword you get is of course the Avos tier, which like I said you won't be able to get if you got the Sword of Aeons before. To get Avos tier, just play through the main quest and you should get it. You can't progress without it, so yeah. This is the counterpart of Sword of Aeons, so the stats are the same with a damage of 230 with a health, mana, and experience augmentations. This too is a one-handed weapon. Then, in this off-the-path normal chest, here in the Arken Shrine, you can find the Orkon's Club, which looks like a baby rattle. It was supposedly owned by a very small hero back in the days, so it does have 140 damage with no augmentations, and it is a one-handed weapon. Next is the Avenger, cool name which can only be acquired by opening the 30, that's right, 30 silver key chest in the Lost Bay, here. It is a one-handed sword, but honestly underwhelming for 30 silver keys. That's every silver key in the game. If you missed one, you won't be getting this bad boy. And yet, it only has 180 damage with a flame and lightning augmentation. And lastly, the Bereaver can be obtained from the Demon Door at Necropolis, but to get it, you have to give him all of your silver keys. So of course, you should do this only after getting the Avenger, otherwise you won't be able to get that or any of the silver chests you haven't opened until this point. That said, it is the second best weapon in the game with 285 damage, and the augmentations vary depending on the version of the game you're playing, but in Anniversary you get health and flame augmentations. That said, it doesn't feel very special to wield this sword because honestly, it's not uncommon to see bandits using it, so it doesn't feel very unique. Now, onto the DLCs. The next 14 weapons will be from the Heroes and Villains DLC. Rise of the Phoenix is a one-handed weapon with 135 damage with a flame and lightning augmentation. It can be purchased right off the bat from the Heroes Guild. Likewise, the Kraken Catcher is a one-handed weapon with 101 damage and a piercing augmentation, and you can purchase it from the Heroes Guild. Much like the last two, the big Clucking hammer is also a one-handed weapon, but with only 82 damage and a silver augmentation. It can also be purchased from the Heroes Guild. Then there's the Blacksmithie Bludgeoner, which is a two-handed weapon with a 202 damage with a flame and experience augmentation. It can be purchased from Bowerstone South. Axel the Axe is a one-handed weapon with 176 damage with a sharpening and experience augmentation, and it can be purchased from Bowerstone South. Sophia's sword is a fantastic one-handed sword with a fantastic 203 damage and 3 augmentations being silver, sharpening, and piercing. Probably the best weapon in the DLC overall. Then there's the Undead Axe, which is a two-handed weapon with only 75 damage and just an experience augmentation. This can be purchased from Darkwood Trader Camp or Twin Blades Camp. There's also the Wardog Sword, which is a one-handed weapon with only 90 damage and a flame augmentation. This can also be purchased from the Darkwood Trader Camp or Twin Blades Camp. The Buzzaxe is a one-handed weapon with only 60 damage and no augmentation. This is getting worse by the minute, and this can be purchased from Darkwood Trader Camp or Twin Blades Camp. The Hobbecaster is a one-handed weapon with 66 damage and a flame augmentation. This can also be bought from the Darkwood Trader Camp or Twin Blades Camp. The Weapon of the Damned is a two-handed weapon with 147 damage and both a lightning and silver augmentation. This can also be bought from Darkwood Trader Camp or Twin Blades Camp. The Big Boo is a one-handed weapon with 90 damage and a health and flame augmentation and can be purchased from Bowerstone North. The One Blade is also a one-handed weapon with 150 damage but no augmentation, and this can be purchased from Bowerstone North. The Dragon Stomper .01 is a unique crossbow with 200 damage with a flame, silver, and piercing augmentations. It can be purchased from Bowerstone North. The next 6 weapons are from the Scythe Content Pack DLC. The Headbanger is a cool ass loot with a 20 damage and no augmentations. It can be bought back at the Heroes Guild. Apollo's Crossbow is a unique crossbow with 150 damage and a lightning and experience augmentations that can be purchased in the Naho Glade. The Pirate's Cutlass is a one-handed sword with 123 damage with a silver and piercing augmentations. It can be bought in Oakvale. Then there's the Sword of Strategia, a one-handed sword with 107 damage with a health augmentation. It can be bought in Oakvale, but was originally given away as a code if you got the Fable Anniversary Strategy Guide. So this is pretty interesting in my opinion. There's also the NWA Staff, which is a one-handed weapon with 53 damage with a sharpening and mana augmentations, and this can be purchased at Snowspire. And finally, the Jacars. It is a one-handed fish with 41 damage and no augmentation. It can be purchased from Snowspire. And that is it! We made it to the end. That's every legendary / unique weapon in Fable. What should I collect next? It can be anything from any game as long as I think it's cool. Otherwise, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to see more collection videos like this, maybe consider becoming a member by clicking join down below, and of course, always nerd on.